All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Money Talk Tuesday. My name is Sarah Safi, and I'm a program assistant with the Office of Economic Empowerment. And today's topic will be all about unions. Before we get into the main presentation, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the Office of Economic Empowerment. Then we will go over some Zoom housekeeping notes, and then we'll get right into the main presentation, and we will finally conclude with an audience Q&A. So the Office of Economic Empowerment is a department within the Office of the Treasurer and Receiver General of Massachusetts, tasked with supporting, advocating, and facilitating policies that empower all Massachusetts residents. Our programs serve women, families, high school students, veterans, and seniors. Our priorities include financial education, closing the race and gender wage gap, racial equity, college affordability, and promoting STEM education. As you may have noticed, this is a Zoom webinar and not a meeting, so you won't be able to view the other participants. However, you can communicate with the host and panelists using the chat feature. But if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A function, and we will get to your questions at the end. Finally, once the webinar concludes, a brief survey will pop up on your screen, and we kindly ask that you fill it out as it helps us improve this program. If you're interested in attending a future Money Talk or any event that we host at OEE, you can follow this link, which will be dropped in the chat. If you would like to explore other financial topics that might be relevant to your life, you can visit myfinanciallifema.org. And as always, if you have any questions or feedback about this event or other Money Talks, you can email us at moneytalk@tre.state.ma.us. And all of these links will be included in the chat. That's it for my presentation. Brian and Bridget, whenever you're ready, you can get right into your presentation.
All right, I think we're ready to go. Hi, everyone. It's great to see everyone today. My name is Bridget Quinn, and I'm the Legislative Director for the Massachusetts Afl-Cio. I am a new Legislative Director. I worked with SEIU before this, and I live in Worcester, and I've been working in the labor movement for pretty much my entire career. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Bridget. My name is Brian Dunn. I'm a senior organizer with the Massachusetts Afl-Cio. I've been at the Afl-Cio for about 4 years now, and previous to that, actually worked at the state treasury, where Treasurer Goldberg was starting this Office of Economic Empowerment, and we definitely appreciate you guys inviting us here to talk to everyone about unions and how unions work and what the benefits are.
Thanks. So I guess we'll get started on our introduction to unions on Money Talk Tuesday. So just a basic overview of the Massachusetts Afl-Cio. So the Afl-Cio, we're an umbrella organization, and we represent about 500,000 union members throughout Massachusetts. And we, every single day, our staff and the Afl-Cio and our affiliates, we basically go to work to fight for all workers in Massachusetts, not just for our union members, but those workers who are not yet organized. So we are always, advocating for union members, but again, we really always look for opportunities to organize new union members in their workplaces.
And I think a lot of our legislative work that Bridget works on in particular is meant to uplift all workers and not just our members. We're focused on making sure that people are paid a fair day's wage for a fair day's work, and we're making sure people that receive the benefits that they deserve and are entitled to.
Right. So it's when I think of what a union is, right? Some people might just think a union member is a union is just an organization that helps me get a raise, right? And that sort of thing. Yes, we advocate for alongside frontline union members, advocate for better wages, fair wages. But we also build power for working people. And our goal is, we all have the same values, right? Our goal is to build power working people and fight for an equitable economy through economic, social, and racial justice. So that is woven into our work every single day. And I think we have a poll up. Have you ever been in a union? If folks just want to click on the results, let's click on one of the three options and we'll see who is in a union now and who was previously. Okay. You want to go to the next slide, Brian?
Had a small technical hiccup.
That's okay. We've all been there. Like we were saying, a union is an organization that's formed by workers and it's driven by workers. So unions are organized by workers and they're member driven, right? So meaning members come together collectively to drive the agenda and the priorities for the union. So that's especially important. It's not necessarily a top-down organization, but it is built by frontline members who make the decision for moving forward with whether it's a collective bargaining or legislative or political program. When you come into a union, what you're doing is you're able to negotiate from a position of strength with employers over wages, benefits, hours, and working conditions. And so a working condition could be making sure that workplaces are safer, right? There's a problem with safety in a lot of workplaces. When a union can say, this isn't okay, and we really need to make changes here. It's easier for a union to do that than one single person going to HR or their boss and saying, this isn't cool that this happened, this is unsafe. They can just, sometimes I've seen it happen where they blow that person off, but when a union representative comes in and says, like, you need to fix this, it's not safe here for your employees, they listen. In terms of benefits, it could be anything from obviously health insurance, right? If you belong to a union, you're likely to get health insurance as compared to private sector workers who don't belong to a union. And your hours are heavily regulated as well. And your working conditions could also be something like, training fund, right? The union I worked for previously, we had organized family child care providers as an example, right? And so we were able to secure a $2 million training fund for family child care providers for any sort of training that they may need to further their careers. They didn't have that before. And now as union members, they were able to come and negotiate that and win that at the bargaining table, which is a huge, huge, big deal. If you belong to a union, you're able to really negotiate upward for the benefit of your family and your other members. I'd also like to point out that in terms of the pay gap, right, between men and women, is that it's a much your pay is your pay, right? We negotiate a pay raise, and it's split evenly between men and women. So you don't see the pay gap that you see in non-union professions because they're not able to do that if you have a collective bargaining that points directly to what you should be making.
And unions are also democratic organizations. So a lot of times companies will try to, when they try to fight unionization, will say, oh, this is a special interest group coming in to take advantage of you or some nonsense like that. When in reality, the union is elected by the membership to represent the membership. And a great example that we just saw of that was there was just a general election for Teamsters general president where almost 200,000 members voted, one person, one vote, one member, one vote for a new president there. So the union is not a separate entity. The people that work at a location are the union, and the union is there to represent their interests.
So there are approximately 14.6 million union workers in the United States today, including over 500,000 in Massachusetts. And we're always looking to increase union membership, right? And so unions represent workers of all types. I mean, I think some folks might think of what in their mind, what a union member looks like, right? Maybe a police officer or a firefighter, but it's across all sort of sectors: health insurance, public safety, human service workers, social workers, teachers, of course, utility workers. And one of the newest groups that has been organized in Massachusetts is family child care providers, as well as adjunct and non-tenure faculty at our colleges and universities. So what are the benefits to joining a union? Oh, no, now we have another poll up if folks want to take a second and fill that out.
You can check off more than one, of course.
Right. So as we see, the benefits are, yes, it's higher pay, which is a significantly higher pay. It's about $10,000 more a year a union member receives in their paycheck versus a non-unionized worker. That is a big deal, right? Also, you're more likely to have a pension. You are far more likely to have health insurance, and not just health insurance, but good health insurance, right? Because that matters. And also your workplace training, and you have access to one of the other things that you have access to besides higher pay, right? Those are the tangible things. But one of the intangible things that I see as you have access to, you have a seat at the table in the political world, quite frankly. So if you belong to a union, and that union has is advocating for you, with you, up on, in this case, Beacon Hill, with our legislature. And so an example of how that is a good thing, or how that turns into victories, we were able to secure, with the help of so many different unions in Massachusetts and so many different community groups and nonprofits, we were able to secure 2 minimum wage increases, which is a huge, big deal. We were able to also successfully pass the strongest paid family medical leave bill in the nation. Right, so folks can take care of themselves if they have a sick family member, or if they're recovering from childbirth, or they've adopted a child. These are landmark things that unions were able to come together and say, like, hey, we need this at the legislature. So those are huge, huge victories. So that is that's something that we can all be especially proud of.
And it's in just a more detailed look at by demographics, that you can see almost across the board that union members make more than their non-union counterparts in essentially every demographic.
Absolutely. And so employer-sponsored health benefits. So not only do the vast majority of union members have health insurance benefits compared to their non-union colleagues, we also have unions also are able to negotiate what those health benefits look like. And that's also that's an example of the power of bargaining right there. Not just that you have health insurance, but you have good health insurance that's affordable and works for your family.
I can just a quick personal anecdote tell you that when I was a contract position before becoming a union member, my out-of-pocket deductible was about $5,000. And now it doesn't exist. So I can definitely tell you from personal experience how much better it is on this side of things.
And it's also really important when, again, going back to advocacy on Beacon Hill, where, when we're meeting with legislators and elected officials, and, one of the things that I do very often is bring in frontline union members and, to talk about what they need for health insurance, like what's really important and why that matters, what's included in their plan. Also, we have defined benefit pensions, right? We hear like pensions seem to be, decreasing and decreasing, whereas 79% of union workers have pensions, as opposed to 17% of non-union workers have defined benefit plans. That is a huge difference, right? And that is a huge difference that, what is that? That is means the stability of your family and the ability to retire and, to retire comfortably or okay. You don't need to retire in poverty.
And obviously a huge issue is, especially for younger generations, is preparing for retirement, is being able to retire with dignity and being able to retire with knowing that you're going to get a certain amount of money each month and that you're going to be able to survive off of it. And the benefits of the union doing that is that they can't take it away if it's in your contracts. My father had worked for a financial company before, and he had a pension, and one day the board decided we're not doing pensions anymore. So they take it away and you get pennies on the dollar for this retirement that you expected to have your entire life. And when you're in a union, they can't do that. They can't just unilaterally take that away. That has to be negotiated, and you still get that pension at the end of the day.
Right. It's especially important as we look at what family looks like today, right? Two parents, or if it's a two-parent household or a one-parent household, and you're paying your student loans, right? The student loans are a huge, huge part of a family's budget now, which makes it even harder to save for retirement, especially if you have two folks that are paying off their loans. So again, the access to a defined benefit plan is really, really helpful and important. It should be a prior. Everyone should have it. You want to take this one, Brian?
Sure. There are, excuse me, many other benefits to being a union member as well. For example, if you're a union member, you're about 30% more likely to have employer provided life insurance. If, heaven forbid, something happened to you to help take care of your family. Also, union workers have better access to short-term disability and long-term disability coverage if something had happened at work and an injury. Also more likely to have paid time off, holidays, vacation, paid sick leave, like we mentioned before. And obviously Massachusetts, some of our laws are better, thankfully, than a lot of other states in the country. But unions help provide that paid time off for employees where it may not be mandated by law like it is here, and also protection from harassment and retaliation. This is a big one, and especially when we're talking about right now where our unions are involved in fights for racial, social, and economic justice, and making sure that we're represented diversely across the table and that we have people from all walks of life, and that no matter what your situation is, that you are able to have dignity on the job, be treated with respect, and that if something were to happen, if you're someone at work were to be sexist or racist or any kind of harassment, that there is recourse and that you can go to your union representative and you can have the full weight of the union behind you to fight the injustices that are going on at the workplace.
Thanks, Brian. And I also just wanted to lift up one other thing. So during the last 19 months, obviously, our lives have been upended with COVID. And one of the things that so many unions in Massachusetts really fought for is to establish emergency paid sick leave for to be able to take time off if you have COVID or if a family member have COVID or you need to get your vaccine. And that result of that was directly attributed to the fierce advocacy by so many union members here in Massachusetts, weighing in with their elected officials and calling the governor, and we were able to make it happen through the collective voice of everyone. And so now we have public perception of unions. And so you see it's sort of ebbed and flowed, and we're kind of, on the upswing, which is good. I think that, people have, like I said, they have a perception of what a union is, but I think that as the union movement evolves, as the economy evolves, we are able to organize more and more professions that weren't thought of as traditional, like union member. An example I gave previously was family childcare providers and, faculty at area colleges, and as well as there's a small unit of clinicians in private practice as well. So any worker who wants to be organized should be able to join a union. And I think that
And I think
go ahead, Brian, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I think you saw this number. This graphic ends in 2020, but I believe we're closer to 70% now, especially as people look at the different safety protections that unions were able to provide during the pandemic, and as people were, laid off and unable to go to work at the beginning of this pandemic, and you could see the protections that were afforded to union members, and that perception just keeps getting better, and more young people especially are interested in joining unions and forming unions.
How to form a union. So you can organize through your colleagues. And if you have folks that you're working with that you got folks who want to form a union, or, there are unions that you reach out to say, hey, can you organize our workplace? It's really as simple as that. I mean, you have to get to the majority of your coworkers that want to join a union, but it really is that, that it's just one person saying like, hey, we don't need to take this anymore. We deserve higher wages, safer working conditions, and better benefits. Let's do this. So because that's really the best way to secure your economic security, and which leads to the economic security, of course, of your family.
And forming a union is, obviously, if anyone who's participating in this or watching this wants to reach out to the Massachusetts Afl-Cio and talk to any of us, we're more than happy to have a conversation to talk about how you get started and the conversations that you should be having with your coworkers. And, we're more than happy to talk to some of our affiliate unions who have been organizing in your sector and who would be best to set you up with, so that they've negotiated similar contracts and they've worked with similar companies or similar management entities to make sure that there's someone there that knows your industry, knows what you're going through, knows the problems or the issues that are going on in your workplace, and is able to best handle that. So a shameless plug to reach out if you are thinking about doing this at all, even just for an initial conversation. We're not gonna, you don't have to move forward if you don't want to, or you don't have to, these are an initial step just to try to make your workplace more equitable, get better benefits, get higher pay, as we've seen in the previous slides, and, really just give you and your coworkers a seat at the table to try to make your lives and your family's lives better, while, the top 10% are continuing to get richer and richer while the rest of us suffer. And we've seen that, at a very high level during this pandemic, where, you look at Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and some of these people that are amassing hundreds of billions of dollars, while everyone's complaining that people on unemployment are getting an extra $300 a week. Well, it's time to get more people into unions and level the playing field a little bit for the middle class and for working people.
So that's a quick and dirty what it means to be a union member. It's hard to cover it all in 25 minutes. But we'd be happy to answer any questions that any folks may have.
First of all, Bridget and Brian, thank you so much for this informative and inspiring presentation. I think it's very timely, as you guys know, with strikes happening across the country and this renewed interest in the labor movement. I'm glad we were able to have the opportunity to talk a little bit more about unions and how they really empower workers. So thank you for your presentation. And yeah, we can take any questions that the audience might have. I currently don't see any questions in the chat or the Q&A box, but I have a couple of questions for you. So You mentioned that unions protect against retaliation and harassment. Could you talk a little bit specifically if workers face repercussions from their employers for seeking to join a union?
I have seen cases where there have been repercussions for folks maybe organizing, but that's, something that the union, fights to make sure that those workers in particular that who are organizing in their union are not retaliated against and do not lose their jobs. So if it's a precarious position for sure, right? It's a risk, right? Bringing a union into the workplace that especially hasn't been organized before, but when you're contacting a union and saying, look, please come in and organize us. We want to fight for better jobs and better benefits. Like, we have your back. Absolutely, 1000%.
And the law, of course, is on our side, and that's one of the reasons we fight so hard electorally, is to make sure that the NLRB and the National Labor Relations Board, and that those are friendly to how they should be, which is fighting for workers. And that's a huge aspect of this, is being able to go to the arbitrator, here and say, they're retaliating against this person, this is unfair, and you can't be punished for doing this.
And then someone just asked if there are any cons to forming a union.
No.
Do I take this, Brian? No.
I mean, there's definitely, there will definitely be efforts on the part of any or the majority of workplaces to try to deter you from forming a union, as we're seeing some of those tactics down in Alabama with the Amazon union election, which the NLRB just ruled that has to be redone because of the illegal tactics that Amazon was using to try to defeat the union. But I think one of the biggest or most telling things to why you should form a union is how hard management fights for you to not form a union, so that they don't have to negotiate with you all at once, so that they can just single people out, and they don't have to fight with their collective workforce. And the resources, the time, and the money that corporations put into trying to stop unionization is exactly why people should unionize.
I've worked on some organizing campaigns where the organization that we're organizing or the agency remain neutral, and folks voted for the union and were able to negotiate a fair contract. And I've also have been on the other side of things where the agency or the organization fought tooth and nail and spent millions of dollars hiring firms, anti-union firms. So it doesn't have to be, not every agency or organization is going to fight a union coming in, but we're ready for anything.
And I think that just speaks to the real power people can have through unions, like the fact that employers would put so much effort, so much money behind anti-union propaganda and trying to shut these campaigns down, just shows that this is a real way to empower workers. So the graphic that you showed is really interesting because it showed that nearly 70% of Americans are in favor of unions, and I think nearly half also are interested in joining a union, and yet many workers are still non-unionized. Could you speak a little bit as to why that discrepancy exists?
I think it's just hard to band people together and to form a union. And a lot of our workplaces, or not a lot, but some of our workplaces already have unions in place, and you come in and you join the union. But especially now, as with things being more remote and people are together less, and even before the pandemic, things were there was a lot of people working from home and working from other locations, and there is less camaraderie, I think, and fewer face-to-face interactions with people where you can talk about what some of your grievances might be, or what some of the issues with the working conditions are, and what problems you might have, or if you're like better health insurance or like to get paid more. And those conversations are conversations that happen a lot in person if you're at the same location. So I think that one of the challenges that we're facing right now is how do you organize a workforce that's remote and a workforce that's not physically together and have those conversations to protect your coworkers, to protect you, and to improve your lives. It's just a different aspect right now, I think.
Sorry. As the economy evolves, union organizing has had to evolve because the workplaces do look different now. And some because of remote work, but also kind of the nature of the work. An example that I used previously was organizing on tenure faculty at Boston area universities. And that organizing work is going to just visiting folks in their classroom or like, you know, emailing them because there's no central place where folks are working, right? So you have to be creative. I've, you know, met folks knocking on their doors saying like, hey, do you want to be, you know, join our union? All types of organizing is it. So everything is on the table through email, through texting, through community groups, house visits, and yes, workplace visits.
And one more thing that I just want to point out is the kind of expansion of the gig economy has obviously, you know, also had an effect on this, and it's going to be a huge focus of ours over the next few years to ensure that these workers are no longer misclassified as independent contractors. They are employees and they should receive the benefits and pay of an employee, the benefits and dignities they deserve. But organizing those groups of people and is going to be a huge, you know, hopefully uptick in unionization and in membership and you know, just raise up the middle class for these big tech companies that are taking advantage of people by misclassifying them.
Great. Well, thank you both once again. This is such a great conversation, and I hope it's inspired some of our attendees to, you know, fight for their right to better wages and better benefits. So thank you for being here. And hopefully we can work again together in the future. And thank you all for attending Money Talk Tuesday. We hope to see you next week at our last Money Talk of the year. Take care, everyone.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.